Hi, I'm Carole from Frankston History. We're here at Sky Stadium to cover the historic lighting of the amazing, huge MCG-like lights and to see the first practice match making history. So, Adrian, hello. Adrian Lloyd, the CEO of Frankston Football Club, established in 1887. We're fast-forwarding 134 years to 2021 on this very, very special occasion. Tell us how you're feeling.
No, thanks, Carole. It's a fantastic occasion for the footy club. We're all just part of it. You know, when you go back to 1887, I can tell you that 1890 and 1891, there was a guy called Thomas Ritchie who was the treasurer of the football club and started Ritchie's in Frankston. So the club goes back a long way and been playing out of this ground for such a long time. And today we see our brand new lights being lit for the first time for our first game, practice game against the Northern Bull Ants, which we're really excited about. And we'll do a countdown for that around about the 6:30 mark. And we're looking forward to a game and for all of our members to enjoy the new look Skybus Stadium. Thanks, Carole.
So what's the future hold now for Frankston Football Club and for Frankston in general? Where do you see the evolution?
Sure. So I should say that for the very first time, Frankston's got a women's side in the competition, which we're really proud about. And we're going to be fielding a women's side in Division 1 of the South East Women's Football League. And in fact, on Saturday, they'll be playing Glenorchy. The Glenorchy from Tasmania are flying out to play our girls on Skybus Stadium on Saturday afternoon. So it actually, for our footy club, it means that we increase the participation. We've got the girls, we've got their partners, we've got their parents, as well as our VFL side. And, you know, when I look at membership at 900 members, and we now reset our target, which was 1,000, to 1,200 members, which I think is quite achievable. And certainly the companies everyone's got behind us, as you can see on the ground, we'll see later on, the companies that have got behind us have just been magnificent. And I've probably got to mention a couple. Skybus, naming rights for the ground. Graham Quarry's been the major partner for 35 years. We've just announced a new major partner, 3MP, Easy Music 3MP, which is my sort of station, about my vintage, but I love it. And also ID Tech, our security company. So from a corporate point of view, Mercedes-Benz Mornington, I'm happy to drive one of their cars, and they've been great supporters as well. So they're sort of our key ones, but there's a hell of a lot of other companies that have got involved. But the main thing is our members have got behind the football club, and we think we've got a pretty good young side. They beat Werribee last week in a practice game. Every club's got their fingers crossed that they're going to be successful. So we're hoping that we're going to have a pretty good year in the VFL and an inaugural year for the women's competition. So they're exciting things for our club. We've got a great board. We've got now 9 on the board, 4 of which are ladies. And it's quite diverse, and everyone's got a portfolio which they actively work in. So we're working cohesively. Financially, we're going okay. We just need to keep our eye on things, and we're going down a lawn this weekend, the VFL side, for a pre-season training camp, which will be a great opportunity for us all to bond together. I'll probably get to know a few of the guys, because when you're sort of operating as a CEO, you don't actually get to see the players that much, but I'm looking forward to meeting them over this particular weekend. So exciting times ahead for the footy club, and we're a big part of the history of our club, of Frankston. And, you know, I know we've got those fantastic gates down there, which I know the council's going to spend a bit of money on next year doing them up. Fantastic. And, yeah, so excited about the future.
Hey, David, thank you very much for speaking to Frankston History. Historic day for the club. Pleasure. Can you tell us a little bit about your part? We know you're the president, and, yeah.
I've been on the board for the last 5 years. I got involved when the club had just lost its licence, and some former captains got together, approached the AFL and said, can you leave the door ajar so we can try and reapply for our licence, which we did. Then it was suggested by a few people that I should go on the board. I've been involved in sport a long time, in lots of different sports, And so I went on the board 5 years ago, and it's been a fantastic journey so far. And then our former president stood down after 4 terms, which is fair enough. And I got the tap on the shoulder, so here I am.
Fantastic. So where do you see the future going with the lights today? What does it mean for Frankston? What does it mean for Frankston Football Club?
Look, it means everything to us. Since we've even had the lights up, the attention we're gaining as a football club is just mind-blowing. Even the AFL, who came down to visit us to do a walk and have a look, were just blown away, and it just gives the whole different feel to the venue. And of course we were pushing them pretty hard to try and get some television games here on Friday nights, potentially. We haven't got that outcome yet, we haven't heard, but it just opens up the door. Plus we can open up to other sports. We can have Friday night games ourselves, so we hope we can grab that market, particularly the women's, because we're going to have women's. That's another exciting thing of our history. We're going to have the women's start next Saturday, so we're going to have some night games there as well. So there's so much to look forward to. We have a fantastic relationship with the council, always so supportive for our development, and there's other plans going behind the scenes at the moment that they want to help us expand our venue even more. I mean, they built this premises, I think, 5 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, to the next 134 years, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And all the very best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Well, I'll tell you what I want to do right now. I'm going to turn the lights on in a minute through my phone. But I want to auction it, because I want to know how much someone will pay to be the very first person to turn the lights on for a game with the Frankston Football Club. And over there we have the Frankston History recording all this. So I'm going to get somebody to turn the lights on my phone. I'm going to tell them how to do it, and they'll switch the switch that'll turn them on. So who wants to start me to turn the lights on at Frankston? 100 from Stevie Maple from Northern Bush. Who's going to let Northern Boys turn their bloody lights on? 100 from Stevie. And $130. 150 for Will Fordham. 150 for Will Fordham. 150 for Will Fordham. 160 on the left-hand side. 160 for Graham. 200 Ingrid Webster. Ingrid Webster is on the right-hand side for 200. That's the truth. That's the truth. This is history. This is history. 200. Turn it on my phone. I've had 200 once. I've had 200 twice. I've had 300. 300 back with the dark glasses on. 350 on the right. 350 on the right. Stewie's trying to shut her up. 350. Don't, Stewart, you sit down. There was a guy called Mario Price, and he had 5 points from Metro College. Mario was trying to get letters, a bit like that. We're at 350. We're at 350. 350 going once. 350 twice. 400. Chris Stodo, dealer principal, Mercedes-Benz Boynton, and I drive one, and they're fantastic. It's 400. It's in with Chris Stodo, Mornington, Mercedes-Benz Boynton. 400. Is anyone going to knock it off? Ben Lawrence, you want to knock it off over the back there in membership? 400, don't put your hand up. 400 going once. It's bloody cheap. 400 twice. 400 for the third and final time. Sold to Chris
Button.
Just send it.
I'm colourblind.
Send it.
I'm colourblind. Which button was it? The green button.
Smile.
No, okay, this is history in the making.
This is history in the
All right,
making.
let's do it. No.
It better work.
Have a countdown.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. That's enough. 4, 3, 2, 1. Did it work? Then there was lights.
Yeah.
That's going up at 500 lux.
And right now I have with me Councillor Brad Hill. Brad, welcome to Skybus Stadium, a very momentous occasion for Frankston Dolphins Football Club and Frankston in general. You've had a lot to do with the club over the years. Can you tell us a bit about your background with the Dolphins?
I've a long-standing member of the club. I became involved with the club 9 or 10 years ago. I came off the council, had a lot of time on my hands, so joined the board, worked my way up, eventually was the president for a little while, and a great supporter of the club. I love it here. It's a family, it really is. Yeah,
and that's one thing certainly that reflects about Frankston in general. And we've seen the club go through some pretty dynamic changes. We've got the new building just to your left, my right. But tonight we've seen the lights turned on for the very first time, a momentous occasion, I'm sure you'll agree.
Absolutely, and aren't they just amazing? I mean, I think they really put Frankston on the map, right? You drive down the highway, you come off the freeway, you see those lights, and it really has made this centre of town the premier sporting club sports ground on the peninsula easily.
Yeah. And so now obviously with these new lights there's a lot of potential for them for not just the club but also Frankston. I've heard rumours that trying to get some larger matches down here. I mean tonight we've got a very special match just about to start in the background, but if we can get Channel 7 down here for example to film some AFL matches, what's the potential for Frankston there?
Well, that's a lot of the justification for having them. It's not just for local football, it's for economic development, for tourism, it's to attract people to Frankston. If we can have AFL women's, if we can have there's a talk of an A1 league here for soccer. People come to Frankston, they eat out, they have a drink, they go to a restaurant, and they go home. It isn't all about locals, right? It's about attracting people to Frankston, and that means jobs.
Great for business, great for local sport, and we can hear the siren going. So I think the match is just about to get underway. So Councillor Hill, thank you very much on behalf of Frankston History, and we'll let the game get underway.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay, now I'm joined by one of the stalwarts of Frankston Footy Club, Ellen Wickes. It's a pleasure to have you here this evening on this momentous occasion, the turning on of the lights here at Frankston Footy Oval. You've and your family have been involved with the club for a lot of years. Can you just give our viewers a bit of a background with your history in the club?
Yeah, well, my dad played here in the early 1930s, I should say. And if I look just up towards the scoreboard, that's where I actually started. And when I was about 10 or 11 years of age, and we had an old tin scoreboard there, and with the Pavlo brothers, we used to do the score. So it goes back to the late 1940s.
But back in the days when you actually used to have to hang the numbers, there wasn't any of the digital technology we've got today.
Rip your fingers on all the metal. Yeah, those were the days.
And how many times did you put a 6 up when it should have been a 9?
Oh, mate, I didn't have a clue.
and now we've spoken to a few people. The club itself has got a lot of history, over 130 years here. What does a club like this mean to someone like yourself, a Frankstonian?
Yeah, well, going back, the Victorian Football Association was the first competition formed in 1877, and this club played its first games in 1887. So we're only 10 years younger than the Victorian Football Association. But as far as I'm concerned, the sporting clubs, football, netball clubs, are the centre of the universe, and it worries me what's happened to a lot of the clubs since the COVID pandemic hit, because so much was lost during that period of time, and I hope that the governments are doing the research to identify how to pick up the lost time for the football and netball clubs in particular.
Absolutely, and although we're all about history, we don't want to see clubs just become a part of history that's forgotten. And Frankston has certainly cemented its mark in the local sporting clubs. You've gone through the highs and the lows, and yet here we are tonight on this magnificent night. The rain stopped. We've seen the lights turned on for the very first game of 2021. What do you see the future has for Frankston Football Club?
The facilities that we have here are the best second-tier volunteer facilities in Australia. So we have the greatest opportunity of all time to cement the relationship with the local clubs and the local community, and it's more than a football club now. It's a business and a community hub.
And certainly a family from what I'm hearing as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, look, thank you so much for your time, Alan. It's a pleasure to have you here. We'll let you go and enjoy this game tonight. And just one last thing, who are you going for?
Maybe the Dolphins.
Good to hear.
Thanks, John.
Thanks very much, Alan.
Okay.
Cheers. We're here now with another Frankston icon, identity, whatever you like to be called, Mr. Bryan Mace. Thank you for joining us here, Frankston History. It's a pleasure to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about your history with the Dolphins, please, Bryan?
Well, it's a long history, and I can see as I'm starting to talk, a lot of my mates are just walking away with a big giggle on their face. So I very, very quickly, I go back to about 1948, believe it or not, when I played my first game here with the local state school. We played against the Catholic school. It was on the opposite corner. And then in 1950 I played my first game with the Frankston Football Club, as it was then known as the Frankston Bombers. And I played, I think it was with the under-18s. So I played there as a 14-year-old. That gives away my age. And I played with that for 3 years, and then when I was 19, I played with my first senior game. I played in the grand final with the seniors against Crib Point in 1957. They beat us by a couple of goals. I always felt a little bit ashamed of that game because we had a population of about 35 to 40,000 at Frankston, and Crib Point had a population of probably 500 or 600. But they imported some 3 or 4 good players, and they had a lot of local players from down south, and they beat us. And a great game of football at Frankston Park before about 10,000 people. The following year we played Crib Point again. I think I got carted off the ground halfway through from memory with a torn diaphragm, and I got told by Pud Cameron, who was one of our great legendary players at Frankston, to take my kit bag and walk up to the hospital, and they'd meet me up there after the game, which I did. So a lot of funny things happened back in those days, but it was good. We were beaten by Crib Point again. I joined the police force. My young son was on the way, so it was not a lot of work. Once I joined the police force, I could not go ahead and keep playing back then because you just couldn't get the time off. So I tried to play. Alan Wickes came down as coach of Frankston. He was a mate of mine, 3 or 4 years younger, but I couldn't get to training, so I went out to Somerville and stumbled through playing out there for another 4 or 5 years. Finished up in the reserves, only training perhaps once every 3 weeks, but I loved it that much. I'd train on my own, kick the ball up in the air, chase it and so on. So I stuck it out at Somerville. We nearly won a grand final against Rye. Then I had to play with their reserves as I got older, and then I think I was 42. I was asked to come back to Frankston and coach now that they were in the VFA. I came back here and coached our reserves to a premiership in 76. Then I took 12 months off to build our house, family house down on the highway. Then I coached the senior team in 78. The club had gone broke in 77. I was determined we'd win a flag. We recruited. None of the players got paid at that stage. We won a flag after a lot of hard work, and I then had to give it away because I wanted to do my promotions, and I couldn't afford to keep coaching the club when there was no money around. You had to pay off your mortgage. So that went along pretty well, and I managed to stop on the committee for 35 years. Alan Wickes was on for 3 or 4 years before he went and become president of the VFA as it was then. I think Alan was up there for 3 years. I stopped on the committee here for 35, retired from the police force in 1991, took on managing the club. So I managed the club here right up until I was 78, and they'd gone into the new competition. I absolutely loved the place. I had a daughter in a second marriage. My daughter arrived when I was 57. She slept in the filing cabinet drawer from the age of 3 months, so it was a family affair. She virtually lived here, and I'd pick her up, drive her to school. She'd come back here, so she'll be here tonight somewhere. She loves the club as well. So it's been my lifetime here. I love the place and I wish I hadn't reached 78 and I could have kept going. That's about it in a nutshell. If you wanted to know the lot, we'd be here for a few hours.
Well, Brian, you certainly left your mark on the club because over to our right, we see your name on the grandstand. Can you just briefly tell us a bit about that?
Well, one of the mayors here, I won't mention the names, she got that idea and I was a little bit against it because I know once something goes up on a grandstand, there's a lot of people might acknowledge the fact that it's deserving, but when you look at how many people there have been that have been voluntary workers around the club, to bestow that honour on one person is probably a little bit overboard, but I'll take it because it makes me feel that proud that it's fantastic. A lot of work had to be done. I had to show what I'd done around the town, such as being the fundraiser for Police and Citizens Youth Centre and one of the foundation members when it was built up near the high school there. Foundation member of one of the tennis clubs. I was involved in everything with my first wife Margaret and my two boys. Well, they were heavily involved at the club. My son Robert was heavily involved at the club. He won the best and fairest in the year that we won the grand final in 1978. He went on to play about 90 games at AFL level. A good player, a little bit of white line fever, but a very good player and a great clubman, and later coached for a total of about 7 years at Frankston. So it's been a bit of a Mace enterprise thing, but I've been surrounded by some fantastic helpers. 2 or 3 of them just walked away and got the giggles when the interview started, but I've had a fantastic group of people around me. And when I had to retire, I must admit I had a few tears in my eyes, particularly when 2 years later the club went broke. But we've had a great lot of people who have surrounded the place again, and we'll go on to bigger and better things because we're the gateway to the peninsula. I hate to say that, but we are. And we've got some fantastic boys at local clubs that should love to come along when they look at the ground and the lights and everything that we've got here now. So that's it in a nutshell. I might add that it's been named after me twice because the first time the grandstand was named after me, somebody burned it down. So there's not too many people can have the same grandstand named after them twice. So that's something to say.
Absolutely, and if I believe so, that former grandstand was the one left over from the Scout Jamboree. And please correct me if I'm wrong here, but one part came here and the other bit went down to Baxter. Does that sound about right?
There was another piece went to where the park, our big swimming stadium, is there now. That used to be a cricket ground, and I only lived about 300 metres from it. And in the early hours of one morning, I was probably about 14, I'm guessing now, looked out the window, there was a big glow in the sky, and the other portion of that down at that ground there, it burned to the ground as well. So it didn't have a good history when it was the original part of it. And the other one went to where did you say?
Baxter Park, I believe.
I think that I've heard that too, but I couldn't say for sure, but I know it did get cut up into 3 lots, so that's probably right, yeah.
Yeah, the only reason I say that, and I'm sure many of our viewers may have a bit more information, but I recall seeing an image of the old Baxter Bears, and they were seated in front of the grandstand. There was some conjecture as to was it taken here, or was it taken at Baxter, and I think the general consensus was that it was at Baxter. We see the game underway right now. Earlier on we saw the ladies out there training. What do you think about the introduction of women's footy?
Look, it's the old copper in me. I spent 30 years heavily involved with the youth. I was in charge what they call a detective chief inspector at Dandenong, which was a very, very busy area and still is. There's lots of things happening. Wish I was still there. Help clean it up a little bit. I'm one for getting as many young people into sport as possible. Doesn't matter what the sport is. Once young people are involved in sport and they become aware of their bodies, hamstrings and the muscular side of it, the healthy side of it, they don't want to get involved in drugs. That's being a bit general, but I found that mainly is the way young people will go. You don't see many, there are some, you don't see many that start fiddling around with drugs if they want to play their netball, their basketball or their football, whether it be men or women. I think it's just fantastic that the women are playing footy. I'd like to tweak the rules a little bit so that they don't keep getting these dreadful knee injuries that they're getting. But as soon as I say that, the girls say, we're not changing the rules.
Absolutely. I've seen quite a few of the games, and I was only saying to Carole earlier on that I think a lot of the time they're probably a bit rougher and tougher than what some of the boys are.
Yeah, I agree. I've watched a lot of the top games on telly, and they tear into it like mad things. I'm not going to be critical of that because I like the strong, rough play myself, but I just hope we can do something to curb the injuries. I know they've got some groups of senior people together thinking along those lines, and I hope it happens because to see the girls out there is fantastic.
Absolutely. And just one last question. Did you ever think that the day would come where you'd be standing here watching a game at Frankston Footy Oval under broadcast quality lights?
No, I didn't think it would happen. I think it's absolutely fantastic for the football club that it has happened, and I hope we can get other sporting events and social type events, and I'm sure council will work at that so that we can get good value back from the ratepayers' point of view, and the people of Frankston come down not just for the football but for what are the other great events that we can have here.
Fantastic, Brian. Well, there's the siren, so I think they're trying to give us a wind-up. That's quarter time, and we'll call it full time here, but absolute honour and a pleasure to have you here speaking with us on Frankston History tonight. So on behalf of the team and our viewers, thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you very much. Good work.